My dear sisters and brothers, as the days quietly move us closer to Ramadan, I want you to pause for a moment and be honest with your heart. Ramadan is not just a change in our schedule, it is an invitation from Allah, an invitation to come closer, to be lighter, to be cleaner inside. But tell me, how can a heart truly welcome Ramadan if it is still holding on to something Allah has been gently asking us to let go of? Before we speak about adding more worship, more Quran, more dua, we must first ask ourselves, what is that one habit that is standing between my heart and Allah? Often, we think transformation begins by doing more, but real change begins by leaving something behind. There is a habit, subtle yet heavy, that slowly drains the sweetness of our iman. It may look small, it may feel normal, it may even feel comforting, but it hardens the heart and distracts it from Allah. And Ramadan comes to soften hearts, not to compete with what already controls them. Allah is so merciful that He gives us time before Ramadan, a chance to prepare, a chance to clear space in our hearts so that when Ramadan arrives, it does not feel like a burden, but like a reunion we have been longing for. So today, before the moon of Ramadan is even sighted, Allah is asking you something very gentle and very powerful. Choose me over that habit. Choose your akhira over what feeds your nafs. This is not about perfection, and it is not about being harsh with yourself. This is about love. When you love someone, you remove what displeases them, not because you are forced, but because your heart wants closeness. This is how Ramadan is meant to begin, with a heart that has already decided that Allah comes first, and that decision changes everything. Just as Dr. Haifaa Younis would remind us so calmly, so compassionately, and so truthfully. As we stand at the doorway of Ramadan, I want you to imagine something with me, not with your eyes, but with your heart. Imagine being invited into the home of someone you deeply love and respect. Before you enter, you would not rush in carrying dirt on your clothes or noise in your hands. You would pause, you would clean yourself, you would leave behind whatever does not belong in that sacred space. Ramadan is exactly that invitation, an invitation into a month where Allah opens doors that are usually closed, where mercy flows more freely, where hearts are more receptive, where even the smallest sincere act is multiplied beyond our understanding. But an invitation like this requires preparation, not the preparation of food or schedules, but the preparation of the heart. And that preparation begins not with adding something new, but with letting something go. There is a habit, often quiet and familiar, that slowly hardens the heart. It does not arrive suddenly, and it does not announce itself as harmful. It grows slowly, blending into daily life, becoming routine, until one day we realize that our salah feels heavy, our dua feels distant, and the Quran no longer moves us the way it once did. This habit may look different for each person, but its effect is the same. It builds a wall between the heart and Allah. And Ramadan comes to break walls, not to climb over them. When the heart is hardened, Ramadan feels exhausting. When the heart is softened, Ramadan feels like relief. Many of us enter Ramadan every year with good intentions. We make plans to pray more, to read more Quran, to wake up for tahajjud, to be more patient, more generous, more present. These intentions are beautiful and Allah loves them, but we often overlook something very important. A heart that is full cannot receive more. If the heart is already occupied by distractions, attachments, sins we refuse to confront, habits we protect, then even the blessings of Ramadan struggle to enter. Allah does not force His light into a heart that is blocked. He waits for us to make space. Letting go of a habit is not easy, especially one that has become a source of comfort or escape. Sometimes we cling to habits because they numb pain, silence loneliness, or give us a sense of control. Allah understands this. He is Al-Latif, the most gentle. He does not demand sudden perfection. He asks for sincerity. He asks for effort. He asks for honesty. When Allah asks you to let go of something before Ramadan, it is not because He wants to deprive you, but because He wants to replace it with something far better. But replacement cannot happen unless there is emptiness first. A hardened heart does not happen overnight. It happens when small sins are repeated without repentance. It happens when we delay turning back to Allah because we tell ourselves we will change later, maybe in Ramadan, maybe after Ramadan, maybe someday. But Allah, in His mercy, gives us this moment before Ramadan as a gift, a chance to soften the heart so that when Ramadan arrives, the heart is already leaning toward Him. Waiting until Ramadan to change often places too much pressure on the soul. Preparing before Ramadan allows change to happen with calmness, with reflection, with intention. This habit that hardens the heart often disguises itself as something harmless. It may be excessive attachment to the phone, endless scrolling that leaves the mind restless and the heart empty. It may be constant backbiting or negative speech that poisons relationships and dulls the conscience. It may be entertainment that crosses boundaries, slowly normalizing what Allah dislikes. It may be holding on to grudges, refusing to forgive, replaying wounds until bitterness settles deep inside. Whatever form it takes, its common thread is distraction from Allah. Anything that pulls the heart away from remembrance, away from humility, away from awareness of Allah, contributes to hardness. Allah describes hearts as becoming hard like stone or even harder. But Allah also tells us that hearts soften with remembrance, with repentance, with humility. Before Ramadan, Allah is offering you a chance to soften your heart by making one brave decision. Not 10 changes, not a complete overhaul of your life, but one sincere step. Identify the habit that you know, deep inside, is affecting your relationship with Allah. The habit you defend. The habit you feel uneasy about in moments of honesty. The habit you hope no one asks you about. That is often the one. Leaving a habit does not begin with willpower alone. It begins with understanding. Ask yourself why this habit exists in your life. What need is it fulfilling? What pain is it covering? What void is it filling? When you understand the root, you can address it with compassion instead of self-criticism. Islam does not teach us to hate ourselves into change. It teaches us to love Allah so deeply that we choose Him over what harms us. When you let go of something for the sake of Allah, Allah replaces it with tranquility. Not always immediately, not always in the way you expect, but always in a way that is better for your soul. The heart that begins to soften feels lighter. Salah becomes less rushed. Dua becomes more honest. Silence becomes comforting instead of uncomfortable. This is the state Ramadan is meant to meet you in. A heart that is already turning toward Allah, not dragging itself toward Him out of guilt. We often underestimate the spiritual weight of habits. We think only major sins harden the heart, but consistency in small disobedience has a powerful effect. Just as consistent remembrance polishes the heart, consistent neglect dulls it. Ramadan is not a magic switch that instantly changes us. It is a mirror. It reflects the state we bring into it. If we enter Ramadan with a heart already softened by effort and repentance, Ramadan amplifies that softness. If we enter with resistance and attachment to harmful habits, Ramadan feels like struggle. Allah loves when His servant comes to Him before being forced by circumstances. Coming to Allah before Ramadan is an act of love. It says, La la la, I want you, not just your rewards. I want closeness, not just forgiveness. This intention transforms the entire experience of Ramadan. Fasting becomes an act of devotion, not deprivation. Night prayers become moments of intimacy, not obligation. Letting go of a habit also requires patience. There may be setbacks. There may be days when you slip. This does not mean you have failed. It means you are human. Allah does not expect flawlessness. He loves persistence. Every time you choose Allah again, even after falling, your heart softens a little more. The danger lies not in slipping, but in justifying the habit and refusing to try. As Ramadan approaches, ask Allah for help. Speak to Him honestly. Tell Him you are struggling. Tell Him you want to let go but feel weak. Allah loves to hear this vulnerability. He responds to hearts that admit their need. Make dua not just for a successful Ramadan, but for a softened heart before Ramadan. A heart that is ready to receive, ready to listen, ready to change. When you release what hardens the heart, you begin to feel the mercy of Allah even before Ramadan begins. You begin to experience peace in anticipation, not anxiety. You begin to look forward to fasting as a means of closeness, not just endurance. This is the gift of preparation. This is the wisdom of letting go before adding more. Ramadan is not meant to fix everything, but it is meant to elevate those who arrive prepared. Allah has given you time, awareness, and the ability to choose. The habit that hardens your heart does not define you, but leaving it can transform you. And when Ramadan finally arrives, it will find a heart that is already knocking on the door of Allah's mercy, already leaning toward His light, already whispering that it wants to be near Him more than it wants to hold on to what keeps it distant before Ramadan arrives. there is a quiet conversation that Allah invites each of us into, a conversation that does not happen with words but with choices. It is the moment when the heart stands between two pulls, one calling toward Allah and the other pulling toward the nafs. The nafs is not always loud or rebellious. Sometimes it whispers gently, promising comfort, ease, familiarity. It tells you that you can change later, that this habit is not so bad, that everyone struggles, that you deserve a break. And Allah, with infinite mercy, does not shout over these whispers. He waits, patiently, lovingly, for you to choose Him. Choosing Allah over the nafs is not a dramatic declaration. It is often a quiet decision made in ordinary moments. It is the moment you stop yourself from returning to what you know weakens your iman, even though it feels familiar. It is the moment you say no to yourself and yes to Allah, even when no one is watching. Before Ramadan, these moments matter deeply because they shape the heart that will enter the sacred month. Ramadan does not create sincerity, it reveals it. And sincerity is born from repeated choices where Allah is placed above desire. The nafs is not your enemy, but it is not your guide either. It seeks immediate satisfaction, not eternal success. Left unchecked, it slowly shifts priorities. What once felt heavy begins to feel normal. What once caused discomfort begins to feel justified. And over time, the heart adjusts to living at a distance from Allah, not because it wants to, but because it has grown used to it. Choosing Allah before Ramadan is about interrupting this adjustment. It is about reminding the soul who it truly belongs to. Many people think preparation for Ramadan means setting goals, planning schedules, organizing meals, deciding how many pages of Quran they will read. These are beautiful intentions, but they are secondary. The primary preparation is internal. It is deciding before hunger and thirst arrive who you are fasting for. Because fasting is not about food, it is about control. It is about teaching the nafs that it does not lead. If the nafs is still in control before Ramadan, fasting becomes a physical exercise without spiritual depth. Choosing Allah over the nafs often feels uncomfortable at first. The nafs resists change. It feels deprived when denied what it wants. But the discomfort is temporary, and the peace that follows is lasting. Allah never asks you to give up something without replacing it with something better. When you choose Allah, He places tranquility in your heart. He gives you clarity. He strengthens your resolve. But this strength comes after the choice, not before it. Before Ramadan, Allah gives you space to practice choosing Him without the structure of the month. This is mercy. It allows you to build spiritual muscles gradually, gently. When you say no to a habit today for the sake of Allah, you make it easier to say no tomorrow. By the time Ramadan arrives, restraint feels less forced and more natural. Worship feels less heavy and more sincere. The nafs often convinces us that we are not ready to change, that we need the motivation of Ramadan, the environment of Ramadan, the pressure of Ramadan. But Allah wants you to know that you are capable now. Guidance does not begin with Ramadan. Ramadan amplifies guidance that already exists. If you wait for Ramadan to choose Allah, you risk spending the month struggling with resistance instead of enjoying closeness. Choosing Allah over the nafs is also about intention. It is about asking yourself, why do I want Ramadan? Do I want it to pass so I feel accomplished, or do I want it to transform me? Transformation requires sacrifice. Not a sacrifice that breaks you, but one that frees you. The nafs holds on to what is familiar, even if it is harmful. Allah calls you toward what is unfamiliar but healing. Sometimes the nafs disguises itself as self-care. It tells you that you need this habit to relax, to cope, to survive. But true care for the self is protecting it from what distances it from Allah. The soul was created to find peace in remembrance, not in distraction. When you choose Allah, you are not denying yourself comfort. You are redirecting yourself to a deeper, more lasting form of it. Before Ramadan, choosing Allah might mean limiting something halal that has become excessive. It might mean stepping away from conversations that poison the heart. It might mean reducing screen time that leaves the soul restless. It might mean confronting an attachment that has taken more space in your heart than it deserves. These choices are not about restriction. They are about alignment. Aligning your life with the purpose you were created for. Allah does not expect you to defeat the nafs in one day. He asks for effort, consistency, and sincerity. Each time you choose Him, even in a small way, the balance shifts. The nafs becomes quieter. The heart becomes clearer, the soul becomes more receptive. This is how spiritual readiness is built, not through grand gestures, but through repeated humble choices. Ramadan is a time when the nafs is weakened and the soul is strengthened. But if the nafs is already used to being obeyed, it will resist fiercely when Ramadan arrives. Choosing Allah before Ramadan softens this resistance. It prepares the nafs to submit rather than rebel. It teaches the self that obedience to Allah is not a punishment, but a source of dignity. Choosing Allah also means trusting Him, trusting that what He asks you to leave will not harm you, trusting that what He promises is true, trusting that closeness to Him is worth more than temporary pleasure. This trust grows with practice. Every time you choose Allah and see the peace that follows, your certainty increases. And certainty is what carries a believer through Ramadan with steadiness and calm. There is a special sweetness in choosing Allah when it is not expected, when the environment does not push you, when no one is reminding you. This sweetness is a gift from Allah, a sign that He sees your effort. Before Ramadan, these quiet choices are beloved to Allah. They show that your worship is not seasonal but sincere. When Ramadan finally arrives, it should feel like a continuation, not a shock. Like returning to a path you have already begun walking, not being forced onto a road you have avoided. Choosing Allah over the nafs before Ramadan ensures that the month becomes a time of growth rather than struggle, connection rather than conflict. The nafs will always exist, but it does not have to rule. Allah created it to be trained, not obeyed blindly. And Ramadan is the training ground. But training begins before the race. Preparation begins before the guest arrives. Choosing Allah now is an act of love, an act of readiness, an act of sincerity. As you stand before Ramadan, Allah is not asking you how much you will do, but who you will choose. Will you choose what is easy but empty, or what is challenging but fulfilling? Will you choose what feeds the nafs or what nourishes the soul? These choices shape not only your Ramadan, but your relationship with Allah long after the month has passed. When Allah sees you choosing Him, He draws closer to you. When you walk toward Him, He runs toward you. This is not metaphorical. It is a reality of the heart. The more you choose Allah, the more present He becomes in your life. And this presence is the true gift of Ramadan, the gift that cannot be measured in numbers or achievements, but is felt deeply in the heart that has learned, before Ramadan even begins, how to say yes to Allah and no to the nafs,